Hi everyone, it's Selena Chaplin here from the Creative Anarchy Productions podcast. I'm really excited today because I have Sarah Benson with me of Sarah Benson Books. Hi Sarah, how are you?
Good, how are you Selena?
Good, good. I'd just like to give you a little introduction. So Sarah Benson has worked as a journalist and a graphic designer, and she's also the author of Born of Shadow, the first book in the Shadow Wars series, and it's a Wattpad featured story. Sorry, I'm stumbling over the words there, but it's a Wattpad featured story. She lives in a log cabin in the beautiful mountains near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, with her husband and 4 kids, and loves interacting with her readers. Oh, you could be students.
Many of them are students.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that you bring a wealth of knowledge about writing and writing for a young adult audience and Wattpad in particular. So thanks again for coming on the show.
I'm delighted to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we'll just jump straight in. Can you tell us about how you came to your writing career and Born of Shadow and how that came about?
It was kind of a roundabout process. You know, as a child, I loved making up stories, and I would make these little books, and my mom would sew the pages together, and I would just draw and make up stories and just unleash the imagination. But, that was just fun stuff. I don't think I took it seriously as a career growing up because I'd heard so much about how difficult it was to get into this industry. And so I think I was just kind of the practical one that said, okay, well, I like art, I like writing, how can I make money doing that? And so I ended up majoring in journalism and graphic design and getting degrees in them and going on to work as a graphic designer. So.
Oh, okay. So you do that freelancing?
So that was the roundabout way, yeah. So then as for actually getting into the writing, I worked as a freelancer for probably more than 12 years, and I really enjoyed it during that time. But as most writers know, the stories just kept coming into my mind, and the characters kept bugging me, and eventually I just got kind of sucked or pulled into the direction of writing, and that kind of became the new passion for me. And so that's why I ended up moving in that direction. Is kind of rekindling a childhood passion, I think.
And so how did Born of Shadows come about? Like, if I know the characters are there talking to you and they're being, wanting to be told. So how did that work for you? How did it come about? Tell us how you took the idea of the characters and made it into this story that's been so successful.
Well, actually, when I started with Born of Shadow, I was actually writing a different story.
Right.
It was actually a paranormal romance, and enjoying it, but there was just so much to the story. It was so big that I was kind of at a standstill with it, and I've been obsessed with mythology ever since I was a kid, and I was pretty young when I started reading Odyssey, and just loved learning about Egyptian and Greek and Roman mythology, and all mythologies really. And so for me, I kind of needed a fresh idea, and so I was just thinking through what I think the idea all started with the jar. I thought, well, what if you had a Pandora's box essentially discovered in modern times? It had been buried away, and and so of course the word box has been mistranslated. It was actually a jar originally. And so what if it had been buried away? And then what if that jar was found by an archaeologist who was obsessed with finding Alexander the Great's tomb? So kind of meshing these cool ideas. What if, somehow that jar has been linked to Alexander the Great, and then then before he can do anything with that jar, it's stolen, and a girl, unwittingly opens it and unleashes that evil. What kind of chaos could ensue from that? So I think that it all kind of started with just this, if I wanted to write a fun mythology story, what would what I write about. I write about all the things I'm totally fascinated about, and that's kind of where it started. And then very soon after that, my husband, he recommended that I have a character who was torn between the two worlds. You know, that was half Egyptian, half American, and didn't really feel like she fit in either place. Yeah. And I love that idea. I thought that was a great idea. So that's how Cami came about. Yes. Or Camilla. Yes. Cami for short. And so somehow I thought, okay, next, how is she connected to this jar and this world? And, you know, of course, it came to me that the archaeologist was her grandfather, and she knows very little about this world until she receives this mysterious package in the mail from the grandparent she doesn't know, and before she knows it, she's kind of sucked into this big adventure. So yeah, that's basically how it came about.
Wow. Okay. Well, that sounds really exciting. So it's a young adult audience that it's pitched at.
Yes, that's correct. I'd have to say like upper middle grade to YA, depending. You know, some of the more advanced middle grade readers really have enjoyed it as well. So I've been surprised how young some people have been. Some of my readers have been,
and some more my age too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I have a lovely reader on Wattpad, Helen Grawl, and she lives in a retirement home and is one of my favorite readers. I just love reading her comments. So yes, this is a story that kind of spans all ages, I think. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, no, yeah. I have to admit it's a really great story it just pulls you into a new world, and you want to go with Cami, and you want to meet Liam, and because Liam's the other character that you fall in love with, so that's fabulous. So how has being active on Wattpad helped you in your career as a creative writer and as an author?
I think it's been extremely helpful. Before I put it on Wattpad, I was very private about my writing. I had not shown any of my writing to anybody beyond like immediate family. That was it. And I was just very afraid at the time that if I shared my writing, I would get discouraged. Someone would say something and I just want to quit. Or, you know, and I think it's a legitimate fear. I mean, there are people out there who do kill dreams.
Yes, yeah.
But with that being said, your story at some point will have to go out to readers. And Wattpad's a great way to kind of test it out beforehand to see, is this a story that that will draw an audience, you know? And I think Wattpad's been extremely helpful because you have to find out how to write so that you can keep people coming back for more, learn how to engage. And I think that for a lot of us writers who are a little bit more on the introverted side, it's a good way to kind of like pull us out of our shells a little bit and learn to interact. And, you know, like Twitter, for example, I was totally terrified to do Twitter at first.
Really?
And before I just couldn't get it for the longest time. Facebook came easier to me.
Yeah.
But I think that sites like Wattpad and then interacting on others like Twitter, it's good for us because then we start to make connections with people that we don't necessarily know beyond our interactive relationships, but it's important to make those key relationships. And I just love that we can make relationships all over the world. I'm speaking to you in Australia, which is so cool to me. I know if you would have told me as a kid that I could do this, I would have just been floored. I love it.
Well, I'm really grateful that I have this opportunity to talk to you from Australia. So, I mean, this is exciting for me too, Sarah. I'm just interested because you do have the experience in graphic design as well, and how that has played a part in your writing, because it's, you know, you've got the book, but then you need to have a visual side of it to sell. So how does that sort of weave in to your author career?
I think it's been fantastic, actually. When I started on Wattpad, I think like most other Wattpadders, I had no idea kind of what I was getting into, what I was doing exactly. But I've quickly found that a cover is crucial to getting your story read. I mean, we really do judge by covers, and I do enjoy designing my covers. you know, it's been helpful for me to visualize the way I want my story presented. And I've kind of come to that space where I do still do some design projects for other people, but I really do prefer doing design projects that for my projects, you know, for my website and my books and all different things. So I think it's been extremely helpful, especially since the nature of the way we do things now, especially on social media. You know, making little graphics for your blog and for your social media and for all aspects of the business. It's extremely handy skill to have.
Yeah. And I think having seen Wattpad myself and had my own experience when I went from no cover to a cover, you know, I saw a significant jump in readership and interest in putting it in people's libraries. And so that's a tip for anybody who wants to put their writing out and not to be afraid to put it on Wattpad. I think it's a very supportive community. And as you said, we had an opportunity to get to know each other because of Wattpad. So, yeah, there's a really great little link. So how has your freelance writing and your authorship and the creative entrepreneurship that you've got going happen? How have you balanced that between your work and family life? Because I'm interested to see how that has panned out for you.
Selena, when you figure that out, you let me know.
I don't have as much to deal with.
I struggle with on a daily basis, to be honest. I would say first and foremost, you know, if you're married, if you have a family, you need your family's support in this. There's really no other way. And I'm very fortunate that my husband does support me, and my kids at least put up with me doing this, with Mom going into the other room. Although they're vocal when they're like, Mom, you need to put the computer down and come play cards with us, or go swimming or go do something. And so I try to listen to those cues, but it's hard. It's hard because, as you know, as writers, you don't really get to choose when the inspiration strikes, so to speak, or when, it's very easy to get kind of sucked into this alternate world, and you don't want that to replace, real life or your family. And so that balance is important. I think one of the biggest things I did in the beginning was I would wake up early in the morning to write because house was quiet. I knew I didn't have to feel guilty because everyone was still asleep, and there was no one pulling me in different directions, and I could just focus. So I think it's really important to find that time in the day, and it could be different for different people. Not everyone's a morning person or can write in the morning. So whatever time of the day, just schedule it in, be consistent with it, and find a time that works with you and your family. I think that's a really good thing. And I think another thing I keep telling myself when I look at people who are so prolific at writing and accomplishing so much is that, we're in different seasons of our lives. And I have 4 kids at home right now. And so as much as I would like to do more than I do, there will be a stage for that. And I just have to learn sometimes just to keep my expectations at a place where I can actually accomplish what I need to do and still try to keep that balance.
Do you set, I've got a couple of questions. Do you set goals for yourself writing wise? And the other thing is, do you sort of tap into your children to help you to develop your writing to be interesting to that audience, for example? I'd love to know what you do.
Great questions. I love them. Yes, with goals. When I am in writing phase, I do. The way I did Born of Shadow, for example, was I just sat down with my planner and I said, I want these chapters done by these dates. And then just I would have to write to what I had set up. And in the process, it was very fast writing, which required a ton of editing, but I'm also, in the learning process. But it was good for me because a lot of times we get hung up and then we just set it aside and then we lose that momentum. And so I think keeping the momentum is key. And so setting up those goals helps keep that momentum by writing on that consistent basis. And I also, started using an outline process that worked for me and finally developing something that that I feel pretty good about. So yeah, I definitely think goals are essential, not just with writing. Writing is important, but also with, if you want to use social media, it's very easy to like just let it go unless you like set some kind of goals and like know what you want out of it. And then as for your other question with using my kids, yes, I do. Especially my oldest son, he is a fantasy fanatic.
Awesome.
And so when I was developing this story, like you said, where do the ideas come from? I mean, they come from all over, but for one thing, in my story, I have these shadow creatures, which you know, they're kind of like jinn or, you know, demons or something along those lines, but they're a little bit different. They have a unique twist to it. And the only reason why I included those at all was because my son totally is into creatures, you know, into Pokemon and into Aragon and into stories like that. So I knew in order to hold his interest that if I could introduce some kind of cool creatures to the story, that he would enjoy it more. And so that's just like one example. Another is we went out jogging together, and so I just like bounce story ideas off of him as we're running, and he'll let me know if he thinks they're cool or not. So.
Well, that's fantastic. You can actually speak and run, first of all.
Slow dog.
But what a very good way of multitasking and tapping into your audience as well, I guess, because, you know, he would be in that age range, which is fantastic. And we want to know we're hitting the right target when we're putting it out there. So you said you've heavily edited. So when you first started, I'm assuming, I'm reading between the lines, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a bit of a pantsing perspective to the story initially, and then you were going through and editing from that phase. Is that, but you now prefer like a plotting kind of?
Well, I got a happy medium going on for me. What I do is a very loose outline. Yeah. So I basically break it. I start with my plot points, you know, and just kind of, you know, just vomit it on the page, you know, and just throw everything out there, that all those scenes that come to my mind, all the things I want to make sure I make in the book. And obviously it's not going to be complete. There's going to be a lot of discovery that happens along the way, but it's a starting point. Yes. You know, it gives me structure and helps me kind of see where the story's going. And then from there, I move to a process where I set up, like, I like kind of organize them. And then I break them into chapters. And all I really do, I do not do detailed outlines. That doesn't work for me because my mind just rebels. Yeah. But it will allow me to have a starting point and an ending point for each chapter, essentially. And then if I have any important dialogue, you know, because a lot of times the characters come into my mind and have conversations. So I know that this is an important scene that needs to go somewhere. And this is kind of the point where I start to figure out where it could possibly go. And it's subject to change. It can change. It definitely does at times. But so then I go through and break down my chapters. And that kind of gives me a point that once I have that done, then I can write faster because I know what I'm writing toward. But of course, I have a researching phase that I do before, because if I don't do that, then I find that I stop writing to move to researching, and then that kills my momentum again. So, yeah, that's kind of how I do it. It's extremely loose. Each chapter is not very big, maybe a small paragraph. Sometimes a little bit more if I have a more detailed scene already in my mind for that section. But that's basically the way I do it.
Great. And do you use editors? How when you've taken your story and you're getting to that point of publishing, for example, how have you tapped into editors?
Yeah, I think editors are absolutely necessary. There's always things that you won't see because you're just too close to the material. And in my case, my husband, he's an English major and also a writer. And so I had him and several other writer friends and other friends who are just very good critical readers go through the story and help me with the structure and anything that didn't make sense or was jarring or was missing, and just go through and kind of revamp all that. And so that part was, pretty essential to like getting the story together. And then from there, I took it to a professional line editor who helped me get it on a more professional level. So yeah, I definitely I'm a big believer in editors. If you know people, if you can exchange services or whatever, or pay for them, it's so worth it. There is, in my opinion, you'll never see everything in your own story.
No, it's very hard. As you said, you're very close to the material, so that's challenging, isn't it? So that's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of editors too, and when I get to that stage, that's what I'll be definitely doing. But anyway, I wanted to know, you've got Born of Shadow on Amazon. I admit I downloaded it, bought it myself because I wanted to be able to take it on the train and read it. So I wanted to know about your process of getting it online to be sold. How did you go about doing that? And how did you feel about putting it out there for sale as well?
Well, I think with every step, you got nerves, because you don't know how it's going to be taken. And I have to admit, Wattpad is a generally supportive community. It's, a little cuddle puddle of people that you just, like to hang with. And so it's like putting it out in the cold, cruel world when you put it on Goodreads or Amazon to be judged, I guess you might say. But at some point, it's like, okay, well, it's got to put it out there. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I mean, it's just a kind of one of those milestones you just have to get through. And I think every author has that moment where they probably shouldn't be reading the reviews, I've decided.
Yeah, probably
but they see something and they're like, oh.
Yeah. That's one person's opinion of a snapshot in time, and it doesn't mean that it reflects everything in the story. It's just maybe they're not your target audience as well.
I actually think that most, especially 1- and 2-star reviews, is not a target market.
No,
it really isn't. And so it's kind of somewhat of a disservice, I think, in a way, to have people reading stories that they wouldn't pick up and they don't really want to read. It's just kind of like, why then? I mean, other than maybe it makes them feel better to be able to spout out their opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
But a good, honest opinion, is always appreciated. And like you said, it's not for everyone. And all stories, reach certain people, speak to certain people, and even the most popular stories, definitely have their critics. So you just kind of remind yourself of all that, take a deep breath, and just put it out there. So.
And is Amazon the only one that you've got it on as an e-published format?
At the moment, but I'm getting ready to expand to other markets, so they should be available in a lot of other places real soon here. So
that would be good, because I think it's a fabulous story, and so many other people could actually tap into it. And you never know where your readers are on what platform. So but it's also, is it on is it print by demand or print on demand?
Yeah, it's available as in paperback on Amazon, and also I can't speak. bookdepository.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I wanted to know also, because I've seen in my research that you go to libraries and you do library talks, and how tell me more about that. I want to know. I've never done that. Tell me how you got into it. Tell me how it works for you.
Well, I think, social media is really great because you just get the word out that you're a writer and what you do. And I think, and also, so I went to, local libraries, and then people would find me online and invite me to libraries, or, tell me, hey, you should go here. It's very fun to do, actually. I grew up going to the library all the time. We did not have a lot of money. We had a large family, and one of the main forms of entertainment was my mom taking us on our weekly trips to the library, and we just stack our arms up with books. And so the library, in a way, is kind of a magical place for me, and I have lived all over the United States. And for me, until I got my library card and have been to the library, it's not really home yet. So
do you find lots of people?
I've loved doing it.
Yeah. Do you find lots of kids and people just come in to listen, and what's the sort of things that they're talking about and the questions that they may have for you?
Kids have the best questions. I absolutely love it. It's funny. I've asked several times when I've gone to the library, what's your favorite kind of book? What types of books do you like to read? And kids just love fantasy. It's like almost like the common denominator, you know, magic books, fantasy books. And so my book is right up that alley. So that's nice. And they just ask such great questions about the mythology. You know, I don't think you can really start kids too young when it comes to mythology. Right. They just are totally gravitate towards it, and have all sorts of interesting questions, and just totally kind of love these alternate world type stories. So it's been very fun going and speaking. And also the historical, I'm big on doing a lot of historic research. And, you know, Egypt itself, it's such a rich culture. And so one thing that we did that was kind of fun with my husband and I, we made a paper mache mummy, which we took.
It's very cool.
To the library. And yeah, I mean, it's just fun to talk about that. And it's so foreign, I think, to most kids, and exotic, and just absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's just been a blast going and speaking to these kids.
Awesome. So obviously their parents are there a lot of the time, or maybe their teachers. So they are encouraging them to ask questions, or are they asking you questions about your book as well?
Sure. Yeah, I get questions from both parents and kids about the books. And, you know, a lot of it's mainly like, how do you come up with your ideas? And, you know, I think one thing that's been very cool, and this relates to Wattpad as well, is I've been able to interact with a lot of young writers. And so at the libraries, it's fun to kind of talk to the kids and what they write and what they've been doing with their writing. And I think for them, I remember when I was a kid and I loved to write, like I told you. One of my favorite series was The Babysitter's Club. I don't know if
I've heard of it. I never read it though. I don't think it was in my alley, that one. But I do remember it.
The library had a big stack, so yeah, I read through them. And but that was just like, she was one of my favorite authors, and so I found out that she was coming to a town like half hour away. And so my mom took me to meet her and get a book signed, and it was just this really exciting experience, you know, to feel like I had a connection to someone in the publishing world. And it was a little strange how normal she was, because, you know, you kind of have these visions of, you know, trying to figure out, ooh, what's this author like, you know, and most of them were pretty normal.
They just like to live in other worlds.
It's cool. It's very cool, because it's like, I think it makes it more real for you, you know, as a writer, as a kid. My hat's off to all these young writers on Wattpad and elsewhere that have set that dream for themselves and are going for it. You know, I think that's great, and they consistently work at it. You know, I think for me, it was just definitely a off on throughout my life process. But with everything that's available now in terms of sharing your stories, I mean, it might have been different if I would have been coming of age in this era, I think, knowing that I could put my story out, I could make connections with the outside world. I wonder if I would have gravitated toward it even faster than I have. So I don't know. Yeah, it's great to be a kid writer right now.
I think it's an opportune time for kids to develop that creative streak and really, like you say, engage in the social media of it and get that immediate feedback. But I think also as an author, no matter what age you are, we really are in a very fortunate time now, because there was that time when it was you only had the option of going traditional publications, and, you know, apart from pestering your friends to read your story, where was your audience? You know, how did you find them? You know, that was the difficulty, I think, for every author. And it's like, when you're starting out, how do you know what is professional publication standard for stories? It's something you have to learn as you go. So that's my observation. So I really want to delve into your experiences with Wattpad in particular, because you have, I think it was over 870,000 reads of Born of Shadow I think I was looking at that just the other day. That's amazing, and I can understand why. So how did you build up such an audience?
I don't entirely know the mysteries of Wattpad, but I can tell you certainly some things that I think helped. I started out like anybody else, coming onto Wattpad, essentially not knowing anybody. And so I determined that I was going to, actually reach out and try to be social on there. And so one thing that I did that helped me to begin with was I went onto Facebook and just basically made an announcement to my friends and family that I was posting this book and I'd love for them to check it out. And I was actually surprised how many of them took me up on that, went over there and read it, and or at least read a portion of it. A lot of them ended up picking up the Kindle version, like you said.
Fantastic.
So that gave me a little jump start because I had at least a few people on there that I already knew, was familiar with, and so that was, I didn't immediately do that. I think I had a few chapters up and immediately ran into the whole no one's reading my story thing. Okay, what do I do now? And so I did that. And then I think the other thing I did was, I definitely explored the site. And one of the best things I did was share my story on the Share Your Story thread for adventure and fantasy. And some of my best friends who wanted to share their stories and started reading my story and leaving great comments. And I think I probably discovered 3 or 4 people that were extremely influential to me just by doing that. And I think that definitely got more readers coming. And then the other thing I did, and I think this was probably the most important, was I just started exploring other people's stories. And it was just cool because there were so many great stories out there. I was just amazed by the talent on Wattpad, especially in the fantasy category. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of amazing fantasy and adventure writers. And so I just started reading a lot of their stories and like leaving comments. And I think it's important to like leave a comment behind because otherwise the notifications may or may not go through that you comment or you voted. But if you leave evidence through a comment, then they know. And they also know, you also kind of build a connection with them on a stronger level when you leave a comment. And I also had a lot of people come and read my story because they saw my comments. And so they became interested in me and would then check out my profile and possibly even follow me or read my stories in the process. So I think just being active on the community is really important, going out there and just reading several things. And over time, you'll see the ones that come back to you and read your things in exchange, and you build kind of this reciprocal relationship with these people. And so I think all that was helpful to get me to a certain stage on Wattpad. And then I was very fortunate that Wattpad offered to feature my story as well, because that kind of takes your story and throws it up in the stratosphere, and you hope, it's a really intense period of tons of people reading your story, leaving comments, and your notifications go crazy. But it's really fun to watch to be part of that. But I think that that was also a big push as well. Those things, I think, more than anything.
And I've seen you collaborate with some other authors to have Wattpad parties, block parties and stuff. Can you tell us about what is a block party and how does it work?
Well, that's the fabulous Kellyanne Blount, or Blount, I don't know how to pronounce the name properly, but Kellyanne, she's just amazing. She's just like a social media, natural. So what she's done, I think this is her second block party, and she invited me to be part of that, which was very cool. And what it is basically she's featuring 75 authors, Wattpad authors, and doing a bunch of really cool giveaways. So the authors basically write up a post, and it could be about anything. One of my friends, Amber K. Bryant, wrote about her experiences winning the a contest, the Stein contest, and our Margaret Atwood contest, and so just kind of the plug that, go for it, try for these contests. And another one wrote a chapter from an alternate point of view. I ended up choosing to bring the entire cast of the Shadow Wars series together to ask them questions. So I interviewed them and opened it up so other people can ask them questions. And that's why I ended up choosing for my post. But anyway, it's just a really fun way to learn about all these different authors' stories and to sign up for giveaways. It's great giveaways, books and getting your name in a book. One of the author's books, or getting chapters dedicated, or all sorts of really cool prizes. And so it's just it's been really fun to be a part of that. And I appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah. And I've seen you also do some Facebook related types of parties where it's been a bit of an event, a question and answer event. How's that worked for your popularity on Wattpad?
I'm a big believer that you need to connect outside of Wattpad as well. Absolutely, because it's just on Wattpad is great, and it's great to build a following and to have that community, but you also need to be thinking about people outside Wattpad, and how to connect with them on the outside. Facebook's been great to build groups, so that you can have communicate easily with them, both secret groups and open groups, to do author pages. And I think that anytime, you do question and answers, I think that there's new people who discover your work and discover you as a writer. And you never know the full influence of what you do. And so I'm a believer that as much as possible, if you can, if someone gives you an opportunity, you go for it and put yourself out there. I think the way that things have gone, writers can't really just hide behind their books anymore and just have them sell in bookstores.
No.
For one, there aren't as many bookstores.
that is a problem.
And for two, it's things have changed. The young people, for example, where are they? They're on YouTube. Yeah. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter. That's where they are. If you want to reach them, you have to go where they're at.
Have you thought of, I don't know if this would play into graphic design stuff, but have you thought of doing a book trailer for one of your items? One of your assets?
Actually, I'm just getting ready to do another fan fiction, fan art contest, and I'm also going to be running a trailer contest. So, I'm planning to get a trailer put together for it,
So everyone should get on Wattpad at Sarah Benson Books and get involved in that contest.
There's just super talented people on there. They blow me away.
They are.
That is not a skill I have yet. It would be cool to learn, but
I hear that the book trailers work really well for a lot of authors out there, and it's becoming quite popular because people enjoy connecting with the story and the characters through that visual flow of film, if that makes sense. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. So have you seen much crossover of your audience from, say, Wattpad to buying and downloading your books on Amazon? Is there any way for you to tell?
That is tricky to know. There's really no way to know exactly how many people are doing that unless they tell you. And I have had several people tell me, and that's always very nice when they leave me a little note saying, I just went over and picked up your ebook or just bought the paperback. Or what I found is that, not everybody prefers the social media format. It's a great way to discover stories. And if I'm friends with the author, I do enjoy doing it because I can leave little messages at the end of the chapters and just let them know what I'm thinking. But if I don't know the author, or sometimes I do prefer just to, read it on the Kindle. And a lot of people don't they would prefer just to do that, period. And so they discover the stories on Wattpad, and then if they enjoy it, then they'll run over and buy it and just have it be an individual experience. And so that's been cool, especially on Facebook. I had several people be like, is the Kindle available? I just want to put it on my Kindle. But I would say the biggest thing is a lot of people want to hold the book in their hands.
Yeah.
And so that's especially with the young adult market.
Yeah.
They want the books. And so I would say the biggest crossover, what was great about that was by advertising on Facebook that, hey, I have this book. When it came time to that the paperback was available, people were already familiar with the story. They had seen people's comments on there. You'd already kind of built buzz somewhat on your social media. And so when it became available, everyone was just very excited for you, and many people then went and picked up the paperback. So yeah, I'd say that's the biggest crossovers that I've seen that I'm aware of are people who prefer to just read ebooks without the social experience, or people who want the book in their hand.
Yeah, I wanted it so I could actually travel on the train with it, because I don't have the cellular thing on my iPad. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to actually download it and take it with me. So I was like, oh, yay, I know the author and I can download it and take it with me. So I hopefully that will start to bring more income for you and help you in whatever goal you have in transitioning maybe into a full-time career. I don't know what you've got planned there, financially speaking. Like you want to build up an audience that wants to pay for your work, so you can then go on to write more, for example. Is that something that's on the horizon for you?
Sure, that's of course the dream. Is to make enough with it to that could be my full-time pursuit, and we're working towards that. It's with the first book, it takes a little while to for anybody, I think, to have people discover it, and people are discovering it every day. And that's exciting. But it just takes a little while, and something I was told, and I actually believe is pretty true, is that it's usually by about the third or fourth book that things really pop, because that first book has had a while to be out there, to be seen, to have friends recommend. The second book comes along, and all the people who like the first one gets excited about the second one, goes out and gets it, and then it expands even more. But yeah, as it goes, then with time, you actually build a following that's big enough that every time you put something out, you have a large group of people waiting for it. And that's the dream, of course, is a large group of people who are waiting for the next one. And it's always, gratifying when I hear someone say, so when is that next book coming out? And I'll be like, well, I'm working on it. It should be soon. And they're all like, yeah, well, my mother-in-law keeps me. Every time she sees me, she's like, well, when are you going to give me the second book? Because I bought the first one for Christmas.
That's fabulous. So, yeah. Well, good luck to you. I hope that happens, and I'm sure it will, because you've got so much going for you and so many different ways of connecting with audience, which is fantastic. Plus, you're an awesome, amazing writer. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what else happens. That is a fantastic segue into your series, the Shadow Wars series. So can you tell us what you're working on now, and if you can share any of those little secrets with us?
Okay. Well, I have been posting book 2 on Wattpad, The Bloodstone Prophecy, and it's been going very well. It's hit #1 in adventure, and it's been fantastic with the readers. It's been a lot of fun continuing that story on, and that one I'm hoping to have available to buy this fall. And so I'm also working on book 3. I don't have a name for it yet, but I do have a few little things about it. In book 3, there is another villain that comes into play other than the Shadow Queen, and I'm pretty excited. It is a he.
Okay.
But I'm pretty excited about what he will bring to the story. That's all I'm going to say on that. But another thing with that is that there will be an event that happens that forces Cammy and her friends out of Egypt. And they actually have to travel to Central America to find vital information that they need to continue to, fight back against this evil that's been unleashed. So,
woohoo.
yeah.
That sounds exciting. I've got goosebumps. I can't wait. That sounds wonderful. Okay, so just tell us, where can people find you and your book online, and how can they interact with you?
Well, the best place is my website, sarahbensonbooks.com. Mm-hmm. I have access to all my links there. And I am on most social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Sarah Benson Books. Yep. So just type that in, you'll find me. So that's how you find me. My books, they're available to buy on Amazon, and you can also buy them on Book Depository. And you can get an ebook or the actual physical copy as well.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today and chatting with me about your experience as a writer and your fabulous story, Born of Shadow. I wish you all the best. Thank you again for that, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Talina, for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.